want to welcome back our CEO.CA viewers to PDAC in Toronto, the world's premier mineral exploration and mining convention. And we're now joined by Christina McCarthy, President, CEO, and Director of Paycore Minerals. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How's the convention been so far for you?
It's busy, which is a good sign given the market's conditions. And I think to see a lot of folks out right now looking at the metal space is encouraging for the space.
So tell us a little bit about Paycore.
So Paycore went public this past April, so we're just barely a year old. We have projects in Nevada, in one of the most prolific districts in the U.S., so it's right on the Battle Mountain Eureka Trend, and about 5 minutes from the town of Eureka. It's a high-grade polymetallic lead, zinc, silver, and gold, previously in production. It's the old, actually, Ruby Hill mine, the historic and sort of really renowned Ruby Hill mine, which would be one of the highest grade producing mines for gold if it was in production today in Nevada.
Yeah, so what experience do you and your team bring to the company?
Myself, I'm a geologist by background. Been in the capital markets for 15 years. Worked at various roles, started in EMD, worked in research, also as institutional sales, and then I built an EMD with some friends. I was part of the team that helped take to the market the Newfound Gold story back in August 2020, and then prior to that I was VP Corp Dev for McEwen Mining for 5 years. So I'd say well-rounded in that respect with capital markets. Our team is phenomenal. We have one of our chairman is Jim Gowans. Jim Gowans built with his team over at Arizona Mining one of the biggest CRD deposit in the world. It's a carbonate replacement deposit. They sold it for 1.65 billion, and he joined as our chairman. Paycore has a similar project, which is the CRD, a carbonate replacement deposit, and I would actually say that it's higher grade even than the Arizona Mining project. And so to have Jim on our team, and who's arguably one of the best top 3 metallurgists on the globe, to have him on our team is great. And then John Bagaman, who is ex Premier Gold, also Gold Corp Humana, and then Steve Filipovic, our CFO.
Yeah, you recently announced that i80 Gold Corp was acquiring Paycore Minerals in an all-share deal. How did that deal come about?
That's right. We just we closed our bought deal. It was an $8 million bought deal that we announced. By the next morning, it was nearly 3 times oversubscribed. We closed at around $18.5 million by the end of it, so very well received, and we got a great collection of shareholders into the company. And then about a day after we closed, shortly after that, we had received the offer from i80 next door to us to acquire the project. So just after we got cashed up to drill the project, we received the offer. And there's a lot of synergies between i80 and ourselves, given they're directly next door, and the structures are all very similar, or the same structures.
Yeah, and what does this acquisition mean for investors?
We're pretty happy with the acquisition. Like barely a year old, and the company was acquired. I think for shareholders, this is phenomenal because you immediately get a premium. There's liquidity. i80 trades on the New York Stock Exchange, so there's the broader and wider audience in the U.S. And then also the biggest thing is this is now a district play. You know, this is 2 properties that are directly next to each other now coming together, and investors now are going to be able to see the success of FAD through i80 developing the projects, as well as all of their infrastructure. They recently announced earlier this year, or it would have been the end of last year, the transformation of their current mill leach operation into a base metal operation, which will produce a lead, silver, zinc con. So that's huge for our project because it is lead, silver, zinc, and gold. And so for that to be able to use that infrastructure now and all of this coming together, it made so much sense to consolidate the 2.
Yeah. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit further on how your operations will be affected because of the acquisition?
Well, we'll run the operations right up until as per usual, business as usual, until the acquisition closes. I think that we're going to have some results out pretty shortly on the historic program. So if you recall, we had 2 programs running. We had our drill program, that's our exploration program that's just started, and then we had a program running which is relogging all of the historic core that we found. And so we put a lot of samples into the lab, and we should be seeing some of those sort of trickling out in the next couple of weeks here. So we'll have assays out on the historic core, assays out on the new exploration program, and I think that, you know, once, you know, the acquisition closes, which should be very first week of May, when i80 takes over, I believe that they'll continue to try to drill some of the holes out on the Jackson Fault, because together this is such a good story that now, you know, whereas i80 had 1.5 kilometers of the structure, now with our 3 kilometers, they have over 4 kilometers of prospective fault structure to test now. So I believe they'll continue to test the extension of the faults over on our side of the border once they acquire.
Mm-hmm. What green flag should investors be looking for when they're looking to invest in the sector?
Always the fundamentals of the company. I believe hugely in management and their ability to execute, ability to finance, and of course jurisdiction. You could have the best property in the world, but if you aren't in the right jurisdiction and you can't get it permitted, well, it could be a game changer and a complete company failure. So it's financing and permitting, and jurisdiction is huge for both.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our community at CEO.CA?
No, I think once this acquisition closes, I think that this company together, i80 and Paycore, they're putting out some of the best results in the market, bar none. They were the best performing gold stock last year. I think that I'm excited to see the success through FAD continued with i80, and I think that just continue to watch with what results that they put out, because it's going to be pretty interesting what additional CRDs they find and discover along these very prospective fault zones.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the convention.
Thanks for having me.